Welcome to This Was Getting Old, moving towards an age-friendly world. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and today we're going to be finishing up our financial caregiving series, talking about top conversations to have related to scams, scammers, abuse, neglect, fraud, financial exploitation, and I'm joined by Cameron Huddleston. So welcome, Cameron.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
And so before we get started today, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and the great work that you've been doing.
Sure. So I have been a personal finance journalist for more than 20 years. I wrote a book called Mom and Dad We Need to Talk, and I am the director of education and content for a company called Careful, two L's and Careful, and it is a digital platform that was built to protect aging adults' daily finances.
And to help give both them and their children peace of mind.
Yes.
Um, right. So I think it's a great service, great app, and great business for people to look into. So let's just kind of launch right right into this. I guess we could talk about scams first. And I was looking on your website recently and saw that you have a kind of scam red flags document also available, which I'll link in this episode description and have it in the blog on my website. So tell us a little bit about how you recognize a scam and kind of some of the different scams that are out there.
Sure. So there are lots and lots of scams always cropping up. I mean, we're, in the holidays season right now. And so, of course, scammers are out taking advantage of people. But anytime there's any sort of natural disaster, they'll use the news to their advantage. And then they're just scams that are always out there and ongoing. But the thing is, these scams tend to have certain red flags. And so, whatever the story might be, they usually come back to a few different things. There's this urgent request for money. So maybe it's you didn't pay your taxes, you've got to pay right away. Or it's a call from someone who's supposedly a family member in trouble. Please send me money right away. Oh, this is your bank and your account has been compromised. Please give us your account information right away. There's always this urgency to it. The other thing is that there's going to be a request for money, but a specific form of payment. They're going to say, we want you to pay with a gift card, a wire transfer, cryptocurrency, okay? Or maybe even using a peer to peer payment app such as Zelle or Venmo. They're not going to say, typically, use a credit card because that is easier to trace that sort of transaction, okay? The gift card, no government agency is going to ask you to pay with a gift card. The IRS, Medicare, Social Security, your bank, you're not going to have to pay with a gift card to those agencies. And speaking of the IRS and Medicare and Social Security, government agencies don't call you unless you have already called them. They typically communicate by mail, not even email, definitely not text message. Okay. So if you're getting a phone call from someone claiming to be with the IRS, it's not the IRS. If you're getting a text message, if you're getting an email, what's very common now is to get these text messages that are supposedly from a bank or a company that you might know, and there's going to be a link. And you're supposed to click on that link because maybe your account has been breached, your account has been suspended, or maybe you're even getting a free gift because you paid your bill on time. Don't click on any links that you get in unsolicited text messages or even emails, even if it appears to come from your bank or a company you know. What you're going to do instead of clicking on that link, is you're going to call your bank or that company directly. You're going to look up the phone number on the website and you're going to call and say, hey, I just got this text message. Was it from you? Is there an issue with my account? Okay. And most likely they're going to be like, well, no, we weren't trying to contact you. It's a scam. And so these are some of the real common red flags of scams. Because, like I said, the stories can change and take on all different forms. But if you know those red flags, it's easier to avoid becoming a victim.
Yeah, and kind of preparing for this in another episode, there's kind of like the primary ways that people are contacted And this is not like chump change. In 2021, scammers stole over $6 billion from Americans. And so it's like this is happening all the time. I think when it happens to people, that they feel very embarrassed, and they feel a sense of shame that they were taken advantage of. But the US Senate puts out an annual fraud book, which I'll also link in this description, but it talks about kind of the um, top ways that people are contacted, and in addition, some of the different scams. So the first contact method is by phone, and 1 in 4 adults over the age of 60 are contacted by a phone. But if you're over the age of 80, that's like the number one way that they're going to get in touch with you, like through your landline. And then the second contact method is through social media. And if you're between 60 and 69, it's highly likely that you're going to be contacted through social media more than someone who's over the age of 80. In fact, I think in 2017, it was like 3% of people were contacted through social media, and that jumped to 15% by 2021. So it's a lot. And then, I had never really heard of this term peer-to-peer payment. So let's talk about both of those forms of payment that you would be asked for. So gift cards, like why are they picking gift cards, and how does that work?
So the way it works is they will say, okay, you need to pay us. You're going to go to, and they'll tell you typically a place to go to. You're going to go to the grocery store, or you're going to go to Target, or you're going to go to Walmart, and you're going to get 3 $100 gift cards. You're going to stay on the phone with us, and you're going to give us the number on that gift card. Okay. And so once you do that, they now have that gift card information that they can use to go online and make purchases. Okay. And there's really no way for you to get your money back at that point, and it can't be traced to the scammer. It's a really easy way for them to take advantage of people without getting caught. That's why they want people to use gift cards.
So they must not be buying things like on Amazon, because they'd have to put in like a shipping address, where they just put in a bogus
They can put in
address.
PO box, or send it to someplace else or whatever. Or they can use it to, for whatever they might want to use a gift card for. Or what they could also do is, use that number and then go to like those, gift card resale sites, and people are going to pay money to get the gift card, and they're going to get that number, but then they can't use it because it's fraudulent. And so that's another way that they could be making money off a gift card. But for them, it's an easy way to get money without getting caught. Wire transfer, once you send that money, it's good as gone. And the peer-to-peer payment apps, this is becoming an increasingly popular way that scammers are taking advantage of people. And they're doing it in 2 ways. So they might, this is where social media comes in. Let's say you're shopping on Facebook Marketplace, and you see a dining table and chairs that you want to buy, and it's a great price. Oh, look, it's only $100 for a dining table and 6 chairs. What a great deal. Okay, well, if the deal looks too good to be true, then it probably is. And so you shouldn't even buy it. But what they're going to tell you to do is they're going to ask you to pay them through, let's say, Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle. And so you're going to send the money, but then they might say, oh, it didn't go through. Can you send it again? Or they might ask you to send more than the amount, and then they're going to reimburse you. And then they just use all sorts of different stories. But again, it's like sending cash. Once you send that money, it's gone, and they might never give you that dining room table and chairs that maybe never even existed in the first place. Or what scammers also are doing, they're sending text messages pretending to be banks and saying that there was a transaction that was made through a peer-to-peer payment service, and you need to cancel it, but you're going to have to, they'll use all sorts of different stories, like, oh, you've got to make this payment to make it right, or you have to give us your login information, and then essentially they're just going to steal your money. So Don't use a peer-to-peer payment app to pay someone you've never met for a product that you've never seen in person. And don't, again, click on those links and text messages that you get.
Right. So I was just putting in some things, about different ways to protect yourself. Make sure that you don't answer a call from an
Yeah.
unknown number. And if you do by
Don't
accident
even
hang
answer
up,
any calls. Just let them all go to voicemail, and then you can screen it and decide whether you want to call back.
right. And then making sure that like caller ID, just because it shows up as a local number doesn't necessarily mean that it is a local caller. Um, Tip 3 is don't respond to any questions that you're asked by a stranger on a phone call. And if you do answer the phone and you get an automatic message that wants you to press a button, to stop getting calls, to just hang up on that too, because anytime you're asked to press a button, that's a way for them to identify you as a potential target because you interacted with them. And I think that most people are like, well, I would just, they tell me to press 1 to not receive any more phone calls, thinking that that will actually stop it, but it actually just makes it worse. So I agree. I let all mine go to voicemail. So now let's talk about some of the different types of scams. So I'll let you start with some, and then I can
Sure.
fill in with you too.
So let's talk about social media, since you said that was the number 2 way that people are being scammed. There are a couple of different ways that scammers can get to you through social media. They might be using social media to sell deeply discounted goods that you're going to pay for and you're never going to receive, or they're going to send you the wrong item. They are going to use information that you share on social media. Sometimes they can use it, depending on how much information you share, to steal your identity, or they're going to use it to take advantage of you. Oh, you're a single lady. Your husband passed away recently. Oh, I've seen your pictures on Facebook. You are so beautiful. I'd love to get to know more about you. You seem like the perfect woman for me. And they strike up a relationship with you online, and they resist attempts to meet in person. And after they flatter you and tell you how much they love you and they really win you over, then they're going to start asking for money. Maybe they have business trouble and they need help, or maybe they need money to buy a plane ticket to come see you. Oh, but I'm sorry, I had to cancel the trip. Let's try again another time. They're going to keep asking for more and more money. Usually it's not a one time ask if it's a romance scam. And romance scams are incredibly common way that older adults are targeted and taken advantage of. And so
Yeah, when I was
certainly,
serving on the special committee for aging, one of the ladies that we interviewed, and she'd been on like the Today Show talking about this, but gave over $2 million to a man that she had never met face to face. She'd only ever seen a picture. So even though they had interacted through like Zoom calls and all this type of stuff, he never came on camera. She went through all of her own savings and then was hitting her parents up to try to help this guy. And then, like a year into this, the guy says, I want to come clean with you about something. And she's like, what? So she thought that she was talking, to this British businessman who had a British accent. And when he came on the screen, it was not the person in the picture. And I guess he had like genuinely fallen in love with her. I don't even know. But it's like, how it just flabbergasted me that that much money had been given in that short period of time. So I think anytime somebody asks you for money, that should be like the red flag. And so that's the romance scam, where they want to start up a relationship with you. The other one that you mentioned earlier was that kind of the government imposter scam. So anybody that
yes.
calls from IRS, a bank, anything like that, that's the government imposter scam. I think you'd mentioned business impersonation, like your banks or shopping scams.
Mhm.
Um,
One, it's often referred to as the grandparent scam, where you get a call from someone claiming to be your grandchild or another family member in need. Please don't tell mom and dad. I got in trouble. I'm going to have to pay a fine to the police, or I'm going to have to post bail to get out of jail. Can you send me money right away?
In the
Again,
form of a gift card.
in the form of a gift card, because of
The
course
jails
the
don't
court
take
is
gift
going to
cards.
accept a gift card because the judge wants to go shopping at Target after he gets off work.
Well, it is Cyber Tuesday. Well, it's almost Cyber Monday.
It's Giving Tuesday. Um,
Yeah.
yes. And so, okay, here's another common one too. You get a call and someone claims that there's something wrong with your computer, or maybe your antivirus software has expired. They need access to your computer so that they can help you upload new antivirus software, and you can give people remote access to your computer. They'll walk you through how to do it, and now they see everything that's on their computer, on your computer, and then you're going to pay them money, and then they're just going to take the money, and now they've infected your computer with a virus, or they've seen all of your personal information there on your computer. That's a common one. It starts with a phone call, which you could have just hung up. What's interesting though is that I know someone this happened to, and the first time they called, she did let it go to voicemail, and they actually left a message. So, but anyone who's if they're calling and they're telling you that your antivirus software has expired, well, again, don't call the number back that you were given. Go look on your computer, go call the maker of your computer. If you've got a Dell computer, call Dell customer service and say, hey, how do I find out if my antivirus software is expired? Go directly to the source. Fake shopping sites, that's really common around the holidays. So maybe you see an ad for a website with great deals on the latest holiday trends or the hottest holiday toys or whatever, iPhones. And so you click on the link and it's taking you to what looks like a legitimate site, but it's really a fake site, and they're just going to steal your money. It might come in the form of a text message or an email. You might get an email around the holiday season telling you that FedEx is trying to make a delivery, but it wasn't able to, and you're going to have to pay additional fees because it was shipped from overseas. Again, don't click on those links in the email. Call FedEx directly and say, hi, I'm Jane Smith at this location. Is there a package that you're trying to deliver to me that can't be delivered for some reason? Don't click on the links in an email or a text message. I can't say that enough.
Right. And I think, um, the U.S. Senate, the fraud report that they put out actually puts these things in order. And I think with COVID, that the government imposter scam has actually been the most common, followed by identity theft or someone saying that your identity has been stolen. So, I think rules of thumb are to not give out any. First of all, don't answer the phone. And even if it goes to a voicemail, if it's not somebody that you call that you're expecting a call back from, just delete the message. And to know, that the government's not, the IRS and Social Security Administration, like, they're not going to call you. They're going to send you a letter in the mail, which then makes me think, well, scammers probably know that too. So why you would think that that's probably where they're going to move to next. So what are some other, so that's kind of like the scam landscape or whatever. Now let's maybe move into talking a little bit about financial exploitation, or those are all scams that are happening by people that you don't know.
Right.
But it's actually much more common that financial exploitation and financial abuse is happening within families, and like, it's your family and friends that are the perpetrators.
Yes.
So what are some ways to protect yourself against that, or some I guess horror stories that you've heard about those things happening?
I mean, that's especially scary to think about, right? That it's people people you are close to who are more likely to be the perpetrators. And so There are a variety of ways that can happen. It might be a family member who is abusing power of attorney. It might just be a family member who is outright stealing things from you, stealing belongings, and then selling them from cash, taking cash out of your home, taking credit cards out of your wallet. It could be a hired caregiver. It could be a neighbor, a niece or a nephew who, had no involvement in your life. And now that you are needing care, they're like, oh, sure, I'll move in. I'll take care of you. I'll help you because I really love you and your kids don't want to take care of you. And so I think we need to go to the attorney and change your will so that I get everything and you name me power of attorney because look, I'm the one who's here taking care of you. That certainly happens. People taking advantage of an older adult's vulnerability, cognitive decline. Here's a real horror story that I just heard from someone when I was at a caregiver conference, and there's a woman. She's in her 80s, and she has a couple who moved in to take care of her. So they're providing care for her, but they're living there rent free. And they moved her into the basement, and now they're living in her bedroom. And another person in the neighborhood who I think used to date a family member of hers offered to help repair the roof and said, hey, can you give me your credit card so I can go buy the supplies? So he takes the credit card and he buys the supplies and repairs the roof, but he also takes the credit card and uses it to make alimony payments and to go to strip clubs. And he uses other credit cards and more credit cards and racks up thousands and thousands of dollars of debt on this woman's credit cards because she totally trusted him and he totally took advantage of that trust and he was caught by the police. And his story was, well, she gave them to me and surely she was okay with me using those credit cards how I wanted to use them because she let me use them. And so, I mean, this is just one of many, many stories out there of how people are taking advantage of people who are close to them. And so, how do you protect yourself? Well, I hate to say this, but don't be trusting of people who were not involved in your life and now are suddenly there now that you are older and perhaps you need care. Make sure you've already named that financial power of attorney. Make sure your bank and your other financial institutions know who that person is. You don't want to wait until you're older to have those documents in place because if you are experiencing any sort of cognitive decline, someone might take advantage of that cognitive decline to get you to name them your power of attorney, and then they're just going to abuse that power and abuse that trust. If you have caregivers in the home, there aren't financial documents in the home, and make sure that you have other family members who are there keeping an eye on those caregivers and keeping an eye on you, and that there's another family member or someone you trust who's helping monitor your financial accounts. Having that second set of eyes on your finances as you get older is really important. I mean, we could all use a second set of eyes on our finances. We can all make mistakes, so it can be technology, signing up for alerts from your bank, your credit card to alert you when there are transactions. It can mean using a service like Careful that you can link your bank account, your investment accounts, your credit card accounts. You can get credit identity monitoring. You're going to get alerts whenever there are money mistakes and unusual transactions, and you can name family members as trusted contacts within Careful so that they're also getting alerts. But it is really important to use account monitoring and have that second set of eyes and to have that social safety net in place as you age, people who know some information about your finances so that if there are changes to your financial situation, they're going to spot it and they're going to get involved. And it's also important before you make any financial decisions or, big or small, that you ask someone else's opinion. Maybe that's an accountant you work with, a financial advisor, or a family member you trust and say, hey, I just got a call or I just got an offer to invest in cryptocurrency. What do you think? Is it a good idea? Run it by someone else before you make a decision.
Right. And I think that that's usually even just taking that one step. Anytime, it goes back to that sense of urgency. There's nothing that's that urgent, and even, thinking about, the home repair scam, which is what, repairing the roof is about, just making sure that a person can order the supplies and you can call Home Depot and say, he was just there to order the supplies to repair my roof. I would like to pay for them. Like, you can still retain control of your credit card and not just hand that over to someone. So that's another thing to do, is that there's always a way to pay for things without having to give somebody else that level of control.
Certainly. And if you are an adult child caring for an aging parent, um, and there are caregivers in the home, take away the credit cards, take away the debit card, replace it with a prepaid credit card that the caregiver can use to buy groceries. Then you're going to limit the damage if there is any. That prepaid
Right.
credit card is going to have a limited amount of money that can be spent. And so you're preventing someone from racking up thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of debt or draining your parents' bank account.
Right. And a legitimate caregiver is not going to mind that,
Sure.
Um, so another tip was, to make sure that you put your loved one on the National Do Not Call registry is another way to prevent that. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has other resources, and I'm gonna link these in the bottom about how to protect older adults against fraud. And they have a guide called Money Smart for older adults. And then again, I'll link the Special Committee on Aging's Top Scams report, which they put out every year. And I remember when I did my fellowship, the guy that took these calls sat like right outside of my office. And so, people are calling, but this is one way that, so there was legislation introduced this year around protecting seniors from fraud, where Congress got together with the Department of Justice. So I do think that over the next couple of years, as this becomes more and more common, that we'll see other things put into place to try to protect consumers. So any final thoughts about protecting yourself from financial exploitation and scams?
Here's the real key thing is, if you are an adult child caring for a parent, you've got to keep those lines of communication open, warning your parents about scams and the red flags, and letting them know that it's okay for them to come talk to you, that you're not going to pass judgment on them if they do become a victim. And if you are an older adult, please don't be afraid to report a scam. If you feel like someone is taking advantage of you, contact the police and let them know. Call your children. Like I said, you're an accountant, you're a financial advisor. Let someone know if you think that you have been taken advantage of. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Anyone can become a victim of a scam or exploitation, but the key is to let the authorities know so that you can limit the damage and prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, and I also think being aware of the fact that these scammers, they're truly con artists, and they're really good at what they do. And if you have someone that starts calling you every day, like just a random person, but it's like someone trying to sell you something, and then you don't actually buy anything, but they want to strike up a conversation with you, and then they call you back the next day just to check on you, to see how you're doing. I mean, they're very friendly. It's kind of like teaching, anyone that strangers aren't necessarily always scary. But if this is not a person you've met in person, that should be one red flag. The very minute anybody asks you for money, that should be your second red flag. And then I think the biggest thing that I can tell people too is like to trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, to just press pause and then pick up the phone and call somebody that you do trust and run it past them. Because I think sometimes, we don't trust ourselves necessarily, but if someone else sees through it very clearly, very quickly, and then gives you the confidence to say, yeah, I need to like block that number, need to be, get them on a do not call registry, and to not answer the phone as much as possible. So Well, thank you so much for being with us. Again, Cameron's book is Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, and it's packed full of all kinds of great information and helpful hints. She has 2 resources on her website. Do you want to tell people how to access the emergency care organizer and the scams document?
Sure. So if you go to CameronHuddleston.com, and there is a free downloadable in case of emergency organizer that you can print out and either use it for yourself and record all your financial information, or give it to a parent so that the parent can write down his or her financial information and let you know how to find it in case there is an emergency. And then there's also that free scam red flags sheet that you can download and print out and give to your parents and tell them to hang it up by the phone or on the refrigerator, or just hang it up for yourself as a reminder, so that if you get that call and you happen to answer it and they're telling you to pay with a gift card, you're going to be like, oh, wait a second, gift card. This sounds sketchy. Goodbye.
Right. And I'll have links to these on my website, melissabphd.com, for this episode, as well as the 3 prior episodes that we just did with Cameron on financial caregiving. So thank you so much for being with us. I'm finally glad we got to do these. It only took us a year.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to This Is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and if you'd like to learn more, you can check out my other episodes on my YouTube channel by subscribing and ringing the bell to get immediate notifications when new content comes out. In addition, you can also find the audio version of the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Please feel free to leave an honest review, because more reviews mean more awareness of the podcast and helps us move towards an age-friendly world. If you have a comment or a question, you can visit my website, melissabphd.com. Go to the Contact Melissa tab, and you can leave me a voice message. You never know, it might just include your question or your comment in an upcoming episode.